this is who I am. And I think we have to make sure that we lean into that. And, our voice is our voice. And yes, there are things that we can do to help our voice, but I'm not a big fan of changing who we are.
Welcome to the podcast about communication in business. I'm your host, George Torok. Did you know that I'm known as the speech coach for executives because I help business leaders deliver the intended message for greater success? And we do that through one-on-one coaching or group training for the team. On this podcast, you're going to hear insights and advice from communication experts from around the world. My guest today is Tim Newman. Here's 3 facts that I think you should know about Tim. 1, in terms of his education background and experience, he earned a doctorate in education in sports management from the United States Sports Academy. And he's been teaching at the undergraduate level and graduate level for over 20 years. And he's had the opportunity to teach in Botswana, Thailand, and Malaysia. His area of expertise is sport, marketing, and public relations. 2, the second fact about Tim is that he likes to find humor in everything that he does. Sounds like a fun person to be around. And he tells people that he takes what he does seriously, but he doesn't take himself seriously. Again, sounds like a fun person, comfortable person to be around. And he likes to use self-deprecating humor, and he's always open to learning new ideas. 3, he created the formula for public speaking to help young professionals become better communicators. And you'll learn more about that program today. Tim Newman, welcome to Your Intended Message.
George, thank you so much for inviting me to be able to share with Your Intended Message community. I've been following you for a while, and I love the podcast. I love your guests. And, as we talked about, we've had some commonalities there. And, I think that really kind of hits to who you are and we are together and kind of have a shared message.
Very much so. When I look at your website and your podcast, I see a lot that resonates with me. So I don't expect that we're going to get into a violent disagreement today, but you never know.
You never know. You never know. Let's hope not.
And Tim, one of the challenges that a lot of people, when it comes to speaking, have is self-confidence, or in particular, the lack of or low self-confidence, what is often known as the fear of public speaking. What's your theory on why that's true? What are we afraid of?
Oh, here we go. Ready? So we're just going to jump right into it. I think this is a deep-rooted, deep-seated fear, and this is nothing new. If you've heard me speak before, you heard what my story is. I actually, the first time I had to stand up in front of a group of people, I threw up. And at that point in my life, again, I've been in the military, I've been an athlete, I've been, somebody who had been in the spotlight. And so we know this goes back for a long time. So it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with something that's new. It doesn't have anything to do with social media. I think it goes to our fear of being judged and looked at by other people. And this is something that we do to ourselves. It's not something that, at least from my perspective, when I watch other people speak, I'm not judging them. I want to hear what they have to say. So I think this is a long-standing, it's been going on for a long, long time, and it's our fear of being judged.
And how did you get over that fear of being judged?
Well, again, I threw up, and and nothing else happened. Everybody had a good chuckle except for myself. I got through it. And, one of the things that I realized, I'm probably one of the best people in the world at getting out of things that I don't want to do. I can always find somebody else to do this or do that. Oh, here's a good idea for you to do. And so if I want to get out of something, I'm pretty good at getting out of it. And if I couldn't get out of it, that's what ended up happening. And I realized that if as a professional, if I was ever going to get to where I wanted to be, if I was ever going to get our family to where I wanted it to be, there are some certain things that you just have to do. And communication, I don't care what it is, George, right? You have to be able to communicate with people. If you're going to a grocery store, you have to be able to talk to people. If you're going to be hired in a job, you have to go through an interview. So we have to be better at communicating. And for me, at that point in my life, it was just, just figure it out. I didn't go to any specific training. I just, it was my mindset. Tim, just do it. Just do it. Just, figure out a way to do it. And my way of doing it was learning how to prepare, learning how to do research, digging in deep, making sure that I knew what I was going to talk about. So that's how I actually started, was learning to know what I was going to talk about, which I've since learned that probably isn't the first thing that we should be doing, right? But knowing my content inside and out, that was the first for me.
You were in sports. You were an athlete. What sports were you in?
Oh, I was. You can't tell now, but I mean, at the time when I was younger, football, wrestling, lacrosse, rugby, anything that was active, anything that required strength against another person, right? So pushing things around and those types of things. I was never very good. I loved basketball, but I was never very good at it. I couldn't hit a baseball, and so I football, hitting people, wrestling, those types of things. Lacrosse is kind of the same way. And then when I was in college, played rugby, so those types of things. Had to be very fit. Had to work hard. Had to learn strategies and those types of things. Now for me, it's just golf, and I don't even play golf very much anymore. And so it's that evolving type thing.
Yes, yeah, we go through different stages, no question. And when you were on those team sports, football, rugby, or even wrestling, before a game or a match, did you have those pre-game jitters?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. And even when I play golf now, I have them. And, one of the things I do is I run tournaments. I don't play in very many tournaments anymore, but if I'm playing in a tournament, if I get up to the first tee box, yes, I still have the butterflies, the jitters, the nervousness. And okay, comes the air quotes, that fear that somebody is watching and is going to judge what happens to my ball, right? I mean, so those fears don't ever go away. We just have to learn how to handle them and deal with them and get past it.
And how did you handle those pre-game jitters?
For me, in sports, it was never limiting. And I'm glad you brought this up, the whole idea of those things happening. But when I played a sport, we never did. We never went into a game without practicing. Not one time ever, right? We practiced, every day. We had a game plan. We knew what the game plan was. The coaches drilled it into us. We practiced the game plans, right? We did all those things so that even if you have those jitters, you can still perform. So right now our NFL season just ended and we're going into the playoffs, and and the Super Bowl is going to be here in a couple of weeks. If you talk to those players that are in the playoffs, or talk to those players that are going to be playing in the Super Bowl, every one of them is going to tell you, and these are the elite athletes. You talk to Olympians when they go into the arena or they go into their sport, every one of them is going to tell you they've got those butterflies and those jitters. But what they know is that they've done the work, they've put in the practice, and they've done the things that they need to do to be successful. And then they're going to go in and perform and let the chips fall where they fall.
Tim, if all those people are experiencing those jitters, those pre-performance anxiety, perhaps we should, instead of denying that, perhaps there's a way to embrace that and use that. Have you seen that?
Yeah, and George, I think that's a really good point. And I would 100% agree with you. And I think eventually that's what ends up happening with people is, okay, again, you feel it, you accept it, and you just get past it and move on. It's a good thing to have those fears, those jitters, those butterflies, because it means that you actually, at least from my perspective, it means that you actually care, right? It means that you actually, have some sort of emotional investment into the success of whatever it is that you're doing. Now, George, let me ask you a question. I mean, you've been doing this for your entire life. When you stand up in front of people, do you still get the jitters? Do you still get the butterflies?
Yes. There's still. It's much more controlled now. And sometimes during the presentation, I make what I perceive to be a mistake, or whether I said a word wrong or I left something out. That didn't come out the way I rehearsed it. Oh, and I have that moment of anxiety,
yes,
thinking, okay, don't run off the stage. They don't know it. They don't know what went wrong. They can't see what's going on in here.
Exactly. And, and I'm glad you said that, because when I make a mistake, you'll know, because a lot of times I'll chuckle. I'll say, ha, yeah, you did it. Or I'll tell myself a joke in my head. You should have said this, but you said that. And when I'm teaching or I'm talking to my students or my clients, I say, that's a time to actually re-engage the audience, because you've switched things up. And what I tell myself, I say, if I chuckle like that, it's okay to laugh. Even if you don't know why you're laughing, it's because maybe I told a joke to myself. Maybe I told a joke that wasn't funny. It's okay to laugh and relax and re-engage with the audience, because that is something that does get them, if you've lost any of them, that gets them back in engagement with what you're saying and what you're doing.
Tim, what are some of the approaches that you suggest to people to get from being that frightened person to actually appearing to be confident? They might not be fully confident, but how can they at least appear and look and sound more confident?
That's a great question. To me, it takes time, and it takes a shift in mindset and practice. I think it's practice, because again, I don't know if you saw the movie What About Bob? He talks about baby steps. A baby step, I'm doing the work, Bob. And to me, it's baby steps. So maybe it's not standing up in front of a team meeting. That's not the place that you start to practice. Maybe it's when you go to the grocery store. Maybe it's when you go to a restaurant. Maybe it's when you go to the bank, and because most people don't even go to the bank anymore, you step up to the bank teller. The bank teller says, "How can I help you?" Right? And you freeze. It's talking to people in different scenarios and just being open. Okay, this is what happened. All she did is, how can I help you? You can help me by giving me my balance, or I want to withdraw $75, or I want to make a deposit, or I need to talk to somebody about an IRA, whatever it is, because you know what you want going in. If you're going to a grocery store, you know what you're looking for. Can you tell me what aisle the cereal is in? Can you tell me, is this broccoli fresh? So start small with things that that don't really require a lot of research and depth, and practice those things. Practice talking to other people, even your significant others. But to me, it comes back to a shift in mindset that, number one, people aren't going to judge you. Number two, the reality is people really want to help you. And then we start moving into more complex situations and understanding that if you need to stand up in front of a team meeting, prepare. Okay, that you were, number one, you were hired for a job. They didn't hire you to bring you into a team meeting to joke on you and make fun of you and tear you down. They hired you because you've got the knowledge, you've got the skills, you're bringing something of value to that organization and that team. They want you to be able to share that. You're responsible for a project, a plan, whatever. You know what that is. Prepare. You've got 3 minutes to give an update on this project. Prepare. You may start out writing it word for word. That may be what helps you. And eventually it may go down to bullets. It may go down to just key points, point A, point B, point C. But it takes a mind shift, and it takes practice all along the lines.
Interesting observation that I've made is that we've all seen speakers struggle. And when we know the speaker is struggling for whatever reason, yet they get through it, we appreciate them more that they struggled to get there. If it looks like everything's going perfect and they just look too smooth, we might not identify with them as well. But if we see the person struggle, overcome the struggle, and continue, we now feel, that person is imperfect like me.
George, that's a really good point. And I hope your audience gets that, because nobody is perfect. There's never been a perfect presentation. There never will be a perfect presentation. I know you've been in some where it's been a disaster, where things out of your control have happened, right? I've been in the same situation. There's been times where you've messed up. There's been times when I've messed up. And ultimately, our responsibility is still to the audience and conveying our message. And we have to get through it. And at the end of the day, if there's something that we've done, we learn from it, right? We say, okay, I should have talked about this. Maybe next time when I prepare this presentation, I may move that here, or I may move that there, or take something else out to make this point better. But to me, that's just part of being an adult and a professional and human learning from our mistakes, even if there's things that happen outside of our control. If we lose power, right? It happens. We still have to get through it.
And I've been speaking in a room where the fire alarm has gone off. and funny, I've seen that happen to other people. And I saw how they handled it well. And yet when it happened to me, my first thought was about myself, thinking, oh, why did this have to happen to me? Why did it pick now? And then wait a minute, George, what did you see those people do? Oh, yeah. Which meant that I had to cut the presentation, and people, and actually it was more memorable because of that.
Right.
And so you can leverage those flaws. And here's another observation that I've made is that once you, the speaker, realize that you have value for the people and then they want your value, now you focus on the value and not about how you look or sound, or, that didn't, I've been rubbing my face too much, or I've been playing with my fingers, and those things might make you look anxious. But if the message is powerful, people will focus on the message, and they're not going to judge you.
Exactly. And the whole idea that as you're preparing, you're preparing a powerful message. That's what the whole idea is, and you're preparing so that particular audience gets that powerful message, and that's to me one of the most important things is that we're giving the audience the message that they want to receive or need to hear.
How we sound. Can we work on how to sound more confident? Is there a way to do that?
Well, yeah, I do think that there is a way to make sure that we sound confident, and that's to prepare and be ourselves. Because if we're prepared, it's our normal voice that comes through. When we're not prepared, we sound wishy-washy. We actually sound like we're asking a question. George, is that really what? And it shows on our face. It shows in our body language. It shows all the way around. So to me, again, that comes back to being prepared. But I also want people to understand we sound the way that we sound, and we need to. It comes back to leaning into who we are as individuals. You talked. When you introduced me, I like to have fun. I like to find humor in things. And to me, that's who I am. That's how I come across, whether it's this podcast, whether I'm hosting a podcast, whether I'm walking down the street, in the grocery store, on stage, in class, teaching. This is who I am. And I think we have to make sure that we lean into that. And, our voice is our voice. And yes, there are things that we can do to help our voice, but I'm not a big fan of changing who we are. I told you, I think you've got an incredible voice, and here comes the air quotes again, an incredible voice for radio. And most people don't know what radio is anymore. But you have a powerful voice that's soothing, that really kind of draws people in and makes them want to listen and hang on every word. And that to me is so powerful that when you combine that with your preparation and your message, that's why you have the community that you have. It's not necessarily because of your voice, but that's something that to me actually draws people in.
And thank you for that. I hosted a radio show for 19 years. So I understood the importance of sounding, because all you have is audio. And when I was in university, I worked as a DJ as well. So I had the opportunity to speak on a microphone to the audience. So I had that preparation, I guess, early on, and just learned to better say what you're saying and better convey it. So it's just it's actually, I guess it's been baby steps along the way in terms of that. And when a person is preparing to deliver their presentation, it's their turn, it's coming up with their need to go to the front of the room or go up on the stage, what can they do to get their mind in the right place?
At that point, you've done all your preparation. I'm a big fan of self-motivation, and I love the whole idea of, for me, it's a walk-up song. For other people, it's other things, but the walk-up song is something that gets you motivated, that gets your blood pumping, that gets you ready to go, gets you excited, because the audience is going to be as engaged as your level of excitement. So if you just kind of walk up to the stage and you Here I am. I'm going to talk to you for 15 minutes or 25 minutes about this topic. You're going to lose them in about 20 seconds. You have to go up there excited, passionate about what you're going to share about to get them at least initially excited to be engaged with you for the first 2 to 3 minutes, and then find ways to engage them throughout. But that first 2 to 3 minutes is critical for you sharing your message to keeping them engaged throughout the presentation. So to me, it's the whole idea of building that confidence. You know you've done the work. You know you're prepared. Have that walk-up song. I've got 3 that I play in my head, depending on the situation, and they're all upbeat, motivational, loud type of songs to really get me going. Other people, and you have to find what works for you. Other people, it's meditation. Other people, it's I know somebody who does jumping jacks. He goes behind those jumping jacks. I don't judge. Good for you. I mean, for me, if I start doing jumping jacks, I'm coming out sweating. They're going to think something's wrong with me, right? Oh my gosh, is he going to fall over? But find something that works for you. That's going to get you in that proper mindset. That, go back to what we talked about, is going to get rid of those nerves initially. As soon as you start talking, you've got about 2 to 3 minutes to really capture that audience.
When the audience responds favorably, when they actually are engaged, that gives positive feedback, and that builds your confidence even more. And so how can we start early in the presentation to get that positive feedback from the audience?
Oh, George, that's a good question. And I think there's a couple ways. First and foremost is eye contact. And let's back up before we even get up there. One of the things that I like to do, and again, this doesn't work for everybody. What I like to do is I like to greet some of the audience members. Mm-hmm. Hi, how you doing? Oh, George, it's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Steve, Becky, how you doing? I'm looking forward to. I hope that what I'm going to share is relevant and you enjoy it and you gain something from it. And then one of the things that I like to do is when I get up there is get them going. George, it's good to see you. Right? Thanks for sitting up front. Oh, Steve, come on up here. We want everybody. And people are already looking around. Well, what's going on? So it's getting them engaged. And if I already know people in the room, which is another one. For me, that one really works. I'm now a recovering college professor. When I would go to academic presentations, right, and I'd see people that you only see 2 or 3 times a year. Steve, how you doing? I'm looking forward to seeing your presentation. Everybody should go to that one as well. So it really does get some of those other things, those intangible things going, and then you bring them back and share your message. But to me, it's important to make sure that the audience is engaged and focused on what you're doing and what you're saying.
And it's ironic that the way to get the audience more interested and engaged is actually take the attention off yourself and put it on the audience, as you suggested.
Yes.
And that's one. It's probably not expected, so it disrupts what they expect. So already they're curious. Oh, this is different. This isn't the way I thought it was going to be. He's actually sounds human up there, and so now they're more likely to pay attention. And when you see that they're paying attention, that gives you more confidence.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do it? What's one of the ways that you engage the audience, in that first 2 to 3 minutes? Because again, one of the things I do is I watch people and I learn, and okay, that may work for me, that may not. And I'll try it, may try that, maybe not. So, what are some of the ways that you do that?
Well, one of the ways is to pose a rhetorical question right off the bat to grab their attention, and a story, and connect it with a story. And so one of my opening lines in my presentation is, did you know, or would it surprise you to know that the president of the company wasn't doing his job? That's my opening statement. Huh. And so that's certainly not what they're expecting. And they're wondering, what the heck is he talking about? And then I go into the story about how a president was failing to win his sales presentations and the challenge he had. And so now they're intrigued because, first of all, gee, the president messed up? Oh, then I guess I should be worried about myself. Maybe I can learn something from
Exactly.
this. And yes, so it helps to, one, use a question, and two, disrupt the pattern. As opposed to, you're not going to engage the audience if you start with, now a little bit about me.
Nobody cares. They don't. I'm sorry. They just don't.
Not at all. Tim, for people who would like to improve their public speaking, there's a course on your website that can help them. Tell us who that's for and what they'll get from that.
Well, it's designed for young professionals to help them become better and more confident communicators. In today's society, we spend so much time on social media, and we're so worried about what other people think about us. It's a step-by-step formula to get you out of that mindset and really get you to be able to communicate with others on a professional basis. And, if we can do that, if we can become better communicators, it's going to transform your life both personally and professionally.
And you've got a special offer for listeners of Your Intended Message. That is a 50% discount.
Yes.
And that coupon code is in the description below.
Yeah, we'll make sure that you get that and get that in the description below. And I'm hoping that it's going to provide some value for your audience, because I think what you're doing is phenomenal. And your audience should be thankful for what you do, because you provide so much value to them, and it's incredible. I mean, I love it. And by the way, I know we talked about this, and I know weed words. We got to get back to doing those weed words.
Appreciate that. Thanks for the vote for weed words. Yes, we ran a short series there, and it's time to get back to them. Yes, the weed words, those words that choke your intended message. Watch for that, because now Tim has said it's coming, so therefore I must do that. Tim, as we prepare to wrap up, imagine talking to a group of young professionals who are hoping to advance their career, whether it's with the current organization or another organization, and they need to improve their speaking skills. If there's 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice that you could give them that could last them throughout their career, what might be that 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice?
First and foremost, and I talked about this at the opening, what I started doing is researching content. The very first thing you need to do is research your audience. Know who your audience is, and make sure that you then, number 2, know your content that is relevant to that audience. So 1 is know the audience. 2 is know the relevant content for that audience, and then build the story that's going to resonate that content to that audience. So it's audience, content, and story.
Important sequence there. The audience always comes first. It's not about you. It's about your audience. Powerful advice. My guest today is Tim Newman, offering you baby steps to improve your communication skills. If you like what you heard, tell your friends and post your 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because that helps more listeners find us. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you deliver your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.